to welcome you to this podcast brought to you by the Waxahachie RBI Club and KBEC Classic Texas Radio. We're going to talk Waxahachie Indian baseball. And we are excited to talk Indian baseball with three gentlemen that represent 42 of the last 50 years of baseball history here at Paul Richards Park and for Waxahachie High School, as we introduce you to Coach Mike Turner and Coach Tracy Wood and Coach Bill Midkiff, who have joined us today to have our conversation. And so since it is about Waxahachie Indian baseball, these gentlemen have such a wealth of knowledge and information, I want to pose the first question, which individually, and we'll start with you, Coach Turner, since you're to my left. What does Waxahachie Indian baseball mean to you?
Well, I think it is something that made me the person I am. It developed me. It was part of my blood from the time I was 2 or 3 years old until this day.
You're a native, which is going to be different from Coach Wood and Coach Midkiff. So that involves coming to games, playing in games, and then coaching too. We'll talk about. And so that's where your perspective comes from when you talk about the effect it's had on you.
Well, certainly, and it means coming down here and playing sandlot ball for two streets that were champions, and Richards Park was our championship field, our World Series
Dunn
field.
Street.
Well, it would be the Dunn Street Bombers and the Saniska Cats getting together.
I thought so.
Lost me on that.
Tracy Wood is the current Waxahachie Indian baseball coach that has been here since '08, and coming in from that perspective, and it's hard to believe now that you're coming into this next season. Haven't been here since that doesn't seem like that long ago. But your perspective on Indian baseball, what it means to you, Coach?
Well, the word respect comes to mind for me. Is before me, obviously before I got here, it was well respected. The other perspective I have is I was somewhere else playing Waxahachie, trying to find a way to beat them, and coming over here and I knew Coach Midkiff pretty well before I came here. We came over here to the tournament at times. We played here, so I don't know. And if I think we go out there in the state, and if we go all the way from border to border, I think Waxahachie baseball is pretty well respected.
Coach Midkiff, you have the longest tenure of all the three coaches that are here today so far. We don't know how long Tracy's going to stay here, but that being said, give us your perspective of Indian baseball and what it means to you.
I can't imagine my life without having been here, coached here. And it seems like I thought about Waxahachie baseball in Richards Park every day since 1981. And I thought, well, I'll retire and I'll forget about all that stuff. Well, you don't. I catch myself driving down the road thinking about a game or a play or a catch or a performance that somebody did. It's just...
You've called me up a time or two to say, do you remember so-and-so happening, or put together your all-time favorite team. So I know it's something still on your mind. Tell us about that first encounter, though. What's the first time you encountered a Waxahachie Indian baseball team?
My first encounter, I was coaching at Grand Prairie, and at South Grand Prairie, Dave Easterling was coaching over there, and Waxahachie was in the playoffs, and they were going to meet, and he wanted me to come down here and scout Waco Conley and Waxahachie. And I walked in here and I thought, man, this is the most beautiful place I've ever seen. During that time, it was wooden bleachers and all that stuff, and it was just neat. That was my very first encounter with Waxahachie baseball.
What about you, Tracy?
Well, how much time we have? But like I said, I was in Corsicana, coming over here playing in the tournament every year, and I got to know Coach Midkiff in that way, and I got a story to tell about Coach Midkiff. So we were sitting over here at the tournament. We were between games, and me and him were both standing up there on the stands there, and two teams were getting ready to play. Out there stretching, and Coach Midkiff says, "Your team stretch?" I said, "Yeah, we stretch, Coach." He said, "Well, ours does too, just because everybody else does." He said, I was watching that A&E channel the other day, and that cheetah never stretched one time before it took after that gazelle. I still tell that story about stretching all the time. Jones said, "Have we stretched?" And I said, "I don't know." so anyway, but I came over here trying to beat them. That it was always tough, and I always wanted to come to that tournament and play these guys because you knew it was good competition, because I believe if you're going to be good, you got to know what it looks like. So that was my first one.
Coach Turner, your first impression probably you really don't remember real well, because I'm sure you got towed down here before you could even remember real well what all was going on, having been a Waxahachie native. What's your first memorable trip to Richards Park that you can remember?
I think seeing teams play probably in the late 50s, early 60s, that just brought, as Coach Wood and Coach Midkiff said, just a respect for the game and a love for the game in a different way. So looking forward to being one of those that maybe got to put on the uniform and go onto the field as a player.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because both Coach Midkiff and Coach Wood, it was as coaches, you were a player in waiting. You just wanted to be a Waxahachie Indian before you ever thought about coaching.
Absolutely right, and that's why I said it was in the blood early, and it was in the blood early because of the good players that you got to see on the field and the excitement of a community that was here to support the players on the field.
We can't talk about Waxahachie baseball without just giving the proper respect to this facility, Paul Richards Park, and Coach Midkiff did just a little bit, but I want to go a little deeper on that, on your first impression when you came to Richards Park and what that meant to you.
As a coach coming to Richards Park, what it meant was I needed to get a rake in my hands and a mower in front of me. But keeping that tradition of the ballpark looking as great as it did in my mind, and wanted to add to that. So,
well, because you have played here,
right.
And I like the way you refer to it about teams having come across the railroad tracks down to the creek bottom. Is that really? Did you think you had an advantage when teams came to play you?
Well, absolutely, and every player, I think that came in this clubhouse to play felt the same way, and I think Coach Midkiff and Coach Wood would say the same thing. Home field, you wanted to protect it, and Richards Park was special.
It's a little unusual, Tracy. We have the cemetery, and we have the railroad tracks, and we do have limited parking space, and so a lot of people have to park and walk through the cemetery. I mean, it is very unique, and then the history behind the park. What was your first thought about Richards Park the first time you made a trip?
Well, just how pretty it was. I mean, you know, the grass was money always, and it still is today. And I do have a video of me with a rake in my hand. I want to make sure everybody knows that. That one time I raked. I take absolutely zero credit for any of that. You know, that's
Was that staged or was that for real?
Oh, it was staged. It's the only way he's going to get it.
Well, that was pre-groundskeeper. We were the groundskeepers to start with.
Well, let me tell you, everywhere I've ever been, it's been part of being a baseball coach. That's just how it is. It's what you do because you take pride in that, and it shows, you know, your commitment. But we got two of the best there is, and with Phil Turner and Jim Miller, those guys are passionate about it. You know, actually, one of the first little run-ins I ever had with Phil, and I didn't ever have many, but the first one I had is it rained. It had missed it a little bit, and he started talking about canceling the scrimmage. I said, Phil, I don't know if you're aware of it, but this field is to play on. We are going to play on this field at some point in time. He said, well, it sure does look good right now. I said, now we're going to put cleats on it. But it's a beautiful place. It's a historical marker. To this day, I literally have to make teams let me come to their place in scrimmage. They want to come here. I mean, I could have every scrimmage here if I chose to. They always go, I want to come to that park. Now, I'm not sure they'd agree to that in a game when it counts, but they want to, you know, they want to come over here and play in that scrimmage. I can add a little story here. One of our superintendents was here. We were talking about redoing our infield and bringing in clay and redoing some stuff. And he asked me, we were standing up on that ramp again where I was with Coach Mick that day. He said, well, Coach, what would you think about turf? And I said, whoosh. I said, I'm not sure who's standing around right now, but those folks out there in that graveyard is going to roll over if you say that again. I'm just telling you. I said, let's not go there. But it's a pretty historic place for sure.
Coach Midkiff, I know you found this out to go along with what Coach Wood was saying, is the fact that this community takes ownership in this field. As much as the baseball program does, this whole community, it's their ballpark.
That's right. You know, you don't have to call people. You can just mention to somebody, we're going to put up a new speaker system, and that Saturday they'll be here. We're going to restring the netting up here. They'll be here. We need concession stand workers. We never went without anything.
It's really a cool legacy that we'll talk about a little bit later in our podcast. I always like to throw along one story of my own, that when Gerald Turner was coaching at Euless Trinity, and he brought his team here after we had played at their place. And my partner at that time was going down to pick up the lineups. And he said, Coach Turner had the players taking a knee right at just this side of the foul line on left field line. And said that he told them, said, boys, you played on a lot of ball fields. You're about to play at a ballpark.
Right.
This is what a ballpark looks like.
Right.
And I think that, coupled with the Baseball America naming us the top field in the Southwest, and the history and the legacy, and we are proud about Richards Park, and I don't think anybody apologizes about that.
No. And he also brought teams in the summer in Legion Ball, wanted to play 4 games here every summer just to make sure his players knew just what you said, that this is a ballpark. This is not just a field.
It is Paul Richards Park. And it's part of our first segment in our podcast. We're going to take a little break, and then we're going to talk more about the history between these coaches and some of their favorite memories, if you'll stay with us.